here at GP Lyon. Hello, my friends, and welcome to continued coverage of GP Lyon. My name's Riley Knight, joined as ever. It's my pleasure once again to have Simon Goertzen beside me. And on your screen, Lukas Blohon and Andrea Mengucci will be the next pair of powerful planeswalkers to do battle in the feature match era. Round number 5. The format, of course, is modern. And look at this, two decks of completely different stripes, Simon.
We just talked a lot about white-blue control, so it's going to be nice to see that in action. Andrea Mengucci was playing 5-color humans at the Pro Tour with a lot of other Italians and Javier Dominguez, but he's one of the players that has switched decks. He's back to playing Burn, and I know that he already dispatched a blue-white control player in the feature match area in a previous round.
So here we do see Andrea Mengucci already assembling that Gucci gang, as we have both Goblin Guide and Monastery Swiftspear getting in and taking Lukas Blohon to account, although he's going to snag a land there. Now, Mengucci has switched from 5-color humans, as we talked about there, as a result of his read on the field. He doesn't think that it's we got the chance to catch up with him here at team coverage, and we chatted with Mengucci about his view that the field is a lot more hostile. There's a lot more interaction. There are fewer combo-y decks, linear decks that 5-color humans can really punish. Burn, I guess, a lot better in a field full of interaction. It doesn't really line up for me so well there, but this is his thought. Yeah,
but I mean, you kind of want your opponent to be stuck with interactive cards, because that means they are not pressuring you and they're not interacting with your burn spells. Of course, you can't expect your Goblin Guides to survive for a very long time, but that was always the case. So I think Burn is a better choice than 5-color humans in this metagame.
Looks like Blohon is doing a good job of trying to keep himself in this game, deploying removal in the most timely fashion he can. Detention Sphere on a 1-drop, never really where you want to be, but you got to do what you got to do here. Mengucci, hot off a 3-buy start. He's 4-0. He's chasing that first ever GP top 8, Simon. I know it's going to be a big moment for the Italian stallion when he finally gets across the line with 3 Pro Tour top 8s and 0 GP top 8s.
I mean, he's top 8ing every other event he plays,
yeah.
So I think that's kind of fair.
Game day.
Also World Magic Cups.
World Magic Cups, excuse me. Yeah.
Pro Tours.
Yeah. Store championships as well, you'd imagine. Legacy championships. But I tell you what, this guy cannot get a GP top 8 to save his life. We'll see if that changes this weekend. Boros Charm at the Dome for Blohon, and an Eidolon of the Great Revel here as well. Looks like Mengucci's firmly in the driver's seat for this one.
Yeah, Mengucci is looking pretty strong here. Even though Lukas had quite a fortunate start to the match. He won the die roll. He got 2 lands off Goblin Guide. He had the removal for the early creatures, but still he's down to 10 and facing an Eidolon.
This little 2-2, Pyrostatic Pillar, has really pushed burn decks up and over the top since its printing quite a number of years ago in Fate Reforged. And Blohon, there are lots of cards in the white-blue control deck that cost, 4, Cryptic Command, Supreme Verdict, what have you, but still it's a difficult card to answer without getting a bit of a pasting here.
Yeah. Actually, something like Plains Supreme Verdict would be an absolutely viable line of play here. Maybe the Flooded Strand that Goblin Guide revealed earlier. Lucas's hand has to be full. I would guess that he's on 7 cards, given Goblin Guide got him 2 extra.
Playing those cards very close to the chest, figuratively and literally here, is Blohon. This guy knows slouch himself. I mean, we talked about Mengucci's quite significant achievements at the top ends of Magic here, with Pro Tour top 8s, World Magic Cup top 8s, and a Supreme Verdict from Blohon. There you go. Shooting from the hip. Simon Goertzen.
No, it's always great when the players cooperate like that.
Make the correct decisions for you. So a bit of a confusing one there, seeing as you think you could get so much value out of a Supreme Verdict as a 2-for-1, 3-for-1, what have you, but looks like Blohon is just relatively ready to get the broom out the cupboard and clean up here. Ooh, double Helix.
Yeah, the game has gone past this stage where creatures are particularly relevant. Now it's just the question if Lukas can survive long enough to... actually, he will have to deal 20 to Mengucci. He will need a Planeswalker, because we are very far off from being able to attack with Celestial Colonnade.
Oh, yeah. And one burn spell off the top here for Mengucci is probably going to spell game over for Lukas Blohon. The burn deck, I mean, it is a combo deck, essentially. It just has a lot of redundancy, and it doesn't really care which cards it draws, but it has to draw a critical mass of burn spells. And Mengucci, in fairness, has flooded out quite significantly here.
Yeah, I mean, he has been able to use all his mana, so it's just a matter of the next few draw steps. If now his deck delivers lands or creatures that Lukas can deal with, if it delivers, for example, Searing Blaze, then Lukas has a shot at getting back into this game. And
in fairness, Mengucci, actually, I correct myself here, because he has only drawn, well, this is the fourth land that he's drawn, because he did have a Path to Exile cast on that little Goblin guide there.
Yeah, I don't think he can complain. Up to this point, his draw has been very good. He also had the creatures the moment you want them. He had them on turn 1 and turn 2.
Yeah.
If your creatures deal 0 points of damage, then your burn spells are often not enough.
Riftbolt U says Mengucci, but Blohon with the main deck negate has the answer. So Mengucci now is going to have to knock the top of that pile there and hope for the very best. Blohon, on the other hand, Field of Ruin, Spreading Seas, not at their best against burn, but he's going to have to stabilize here. He's going to have to do it pretty impressively. Imagine Rune Halo naming Lightning Bolt.
I guess that Lukas looked at Andrea's graveyard and just chose the burn spell that was most likely still in Andrea's deck.
Spreading Seas on this Sacred Foundry here.
I thought if there's maybe a reason to name Eidolon with it as well.
And now we have Field of Ruin getting rid of that other Sacred Foundry here. Now this is perplexing for me, Simon, because Blohon has a Cryptic Command in hand. He must have another form of interaction here. A Spreading Seas once again, so he's dead to a Riftbolt here. Mengucci can find something off the top, and Monastery Swiftspear is going to get him some of the way. Blohon down to 2.
Blohon deciding that if he has to tap out, he's going to do it that turn, and if he can get rid of the white sources for Mengucci to disable Lightning Helix.
Boros Charm.
There's a Gideon.
Boros Charm also not a concern now for Blohon, seeing as Mengucci no access to white mana. And here is, yes, Gideon, ally of Zendikar. And what are we going to do here? Ships the turn. Looks like a 2/2 is coming down in short order. A Knight ally.
So now Searing Blaze is actually a problem.
So Riftbolt off the top here for Mengucci, and that is going to be enough here for Blohon to have to pack him up. Now, he did a great job beginning to stabilize there, but ultimately Mengucci was able to find what he needed off the top of the library. A tricky position for Blohon to be on, a lot of early pressure, backed up by some mid-game burn spells, and ultimately the top of Mengucci's library doing its job and delivering the goods. Blohon and Mengucci going to hit the sideboards. We've got the advantage of having the deck lists here, and of course this match is going to change quite considerably once the players get access to the sideboard, assuming Blohon has come prepared. Let's have a look at what he's working with. I can see a Celestial Purge, another copy of Negate, 2 copies of Dispel, which is very nice, but he has gone for 2 copies, Simon, of Timely Reinforcements. Now, often these blue-based control decks will play 1 copy, hope to flash it back with the Snapcaster. I have to put Blohon in a really good position now, considering he has 2 copies, so much more likely to draw it. Twice as likely.
Yeah, 2 Timely Reinforcements. They also combine very nicely with Snapcaster Mage. The burn deck has a much harder task in game 2. As we could see, even with the answers of blue-white control, it is geared towards such a diverse metagame that the simple plan of just burning for 3 per spell, 3 to 4 per spell, will most often get there.
On the other hand, however, Andrea Mengucci's got some interesting sideboard options himself. Is there anything he can do to really shore up this matchup? Maybe shave some of those dead cards, Searing Blaze and the like?
I see 2 cards that are interesting here. Skullcrack is definitely going to come in. You absolutely want to prevent all life gain from your opponent. The other card that's interesting is Destructive Revelry.
Oh, yeah.
Because you know that white-blue control will give you, or maybe not artifacts, but enchantments for sure to target.
And the thing is here, bringing in that Destructive Revelry is not only a great way to pressure cards like Detention Sphere, Search for Azcanta, Ruined Halo, what have you. The tacked-on burn on it as well. It means that you don't have to take a turn off. In previous rounds, we saw these disruptive hate cards, stuff like Rest in Peace, result in players playing aggressive decks having to essentially take a turn off developing their board and their game plan. Destructive Revelry doesn't force you into doing that.
If it didn't have the extra clause on it, it would be a much tighter call if you wanted it at all in the matchup.
Oh yeah.
But with the 2 damage on top, it's a great card to put in. For example, Mengucci does have access to Rest in Peace, but I don't expect him to bring it in. It doesn't deal damage to his opponent. So shutting off something like a Snapcaster Mage or weakening a Logic Knot is not what his game plan is going to be.
No, and that Rest in Peace is for sure against decks where it is an absolute stone cold hoser. I mean, Rest in Peace has great utility against Lukas Blohon's deck. Let's not make any mistakes about that. But it isn't the sort of game where if this gets played on turn 2, Blohon's like, all right, okay, well, I have to beat that, but I can. That's fine.
No, he's actually happy because he didn't take damage. It's not an Eidolon.
Okay, great. So he's actually celebrating.
It's a lot of things that would have. It's not a lot of things that would have been worse.
Yeah, right. Whereas a deck like Dredge or what have you, a deck that's super reliant on the graveyard is going to be a lot unhappier to see it. These players getting ready for game number 2 now, with Mengucci having taken out game number 1 here at GP Lyon. Round number 5, of course, the format is modern. It's great to have your company around the world, wherever you are, having chosen to join us. Thanks for spending this weekend with us. And of course, it doesn't stop for a long while yet. We've got all day today, all day tomorrow, and we're hoping to have you with us as we bring you live coverage of this excellent format. As again, we head towards a pretty big shake-up coming up in the next couple of weeks. It'll be interesting to get those final points of data to figure out exactly what impact we're going to have with Bloodbraid Elf and Jace the Mind Sculptor coming into play before very much longer. But right now, it's all about Lukas Blohon and Andrea Mengucci examining their opening hands. And what are they looking like here, Simon?
I don't see any lands in Mengucci's hand. I don't think he can keep this.
No? Sends it packing?
Well, maybe not.
Going to keep the old no-lander on the draw? Andrea Mengucci, look at this. He's going to have a good old think about this bowl of spaghetti. What's he wanting to do? Blohon, on the other hand, seems to have a decent mix here, and an Ancestral Vision in hand here for Blohon as well, a card we didn't see in game number 1. Gucci down to 6.
Yeah, I was afraid there for a second that he was going to gamble, but on 7 you just can't do that. On 6 with the Scry, okay, I understand. But with Burn, you definitely don't want to mulligan too much.
This is the thing. I mean, we can touch upon this a little bit. This is a revelation that I had only relatively recently, Simon, about the Burn deck and what it's attempting to do here, because it really is about just pure number of cards that it can cast. That's all the Burn deck cares about, because it will eventually draw enough to burn an opponent out. It's about how quickly it can have access to those lethal burn spells.
Absolutely. So basically what's relevant is the distribution of lands and spells in your draw, combined with the fact of, well, with the overall amount of cards. But the overall amount of cards in a burn deck is just the number of turns you've taken, plus 6 or 7, depending on your opening hand.
Opening things up now, Lukas Blohon with an Ancestral Vision. Mengucci seems to be happy with the 6 he's found as well, so we're going to see a turn 1 play from him in the form of a Lava Spike. Not the perfect opening play here. You'd obviously prefer a creature, but still opening the account here, the Italian.
I don't like this play too much, because he did allow exactly what happened here. He allowed this Spreading Seas to resolve. If he starts the game off with a fetch land instead and just keeps it in play, then he denies Lukas this really nice tempo play of casting a turn 2 Spreading Seas. Lukas wasn't going to use his mana for anything else anyway.
Negate on the Rift Bolt means that Blohon is tapped out for his 3rd turn. But that's fine, because that negate essentially said gain 3 life, and he's happy to do that. You'd play as many healing salves as you could against Burn, which again is attempting to assemble that critical mass of burn spells. So far, Mengucci has been stymied in that so far. But this summon is why we have cards like Collective Brutality at such a premium against Burn, because if you could just remove your Burn player's hand, no matter what the cost is, you're going to win. You're going to win. Like, if you discard 3 of your own cards to deal with 3 of their cards, which is effectively what Collective Brutality does, you're in a great position. Lightning Helix now. Vision's down to 1. Here's a Visions of a different stripe. And Blohon, heading into his 4th turn on 14 life, he's going to be happy with that.
Oh, this is amazing. He has so much life to work with. He has resolved the Spreading Seas.
Oh dear.
And he's gaining life. So
back up to 20.
This is actually the dance that actually happens in this matchup is, can the Burn player keep open 2 mana to respond to a life gain spell with something like Skullcrag? And Andrea couldn't do that this turn. I think this game is close to over.
Mengucci now facing down an Ancestral Vision that is going to resolve. Blohon's going to draw 4 cards for this turn, and that's just going to be huge. Another Serum Visions, mismatched. Blech. And 2 more cards off the top for Blohon. Interesting to see that he keeps in these visions. The Ancestral Vision, I don't think it's great against the burn deck, but maybe he just doesn't have enough cards to take out.
It's not great against the burn deck, but you are boarding in so many cards that are great, and you want to play this super interactive game where you're just trading resources 1 for 1. So you need something to refuel, and actually spending 1 mana to refuel is a lot safer than, for example, trying to get value off of more expensive spells.
Eidolon of the Great Revel now. So a way for Mengucci to continue to pressure Blohon, but with a full grip, you'd think that he'd have the answers here. Quite a few lands in hand, however. Back to Mengucci. Blohon continuing to develop his mana, sitting pretty at 20. And then comes the 2-2. Condemn going to tuck it away tidily here. And that's an interesting main deck one-of in Condemn. Very good against the Death Shadows of the formats.
Oh, absolutely, yes. And not too bad against all these aggro decks. Of course, you don't really want to draw it against Tron, but there are enough aggressive strategies that this is a valuable card to have.
Mengucci following it up with a suspended Rift Bolt. Back to Lukas. Blohon now. What's he going to do with this next turn? As we've mentioned, developing his mana very nicely. Mengucci has once again drawn just a touch too many lands, Simon.
Absolutely, yes.
I don't see a way that Mengucci can win this game unless Blohon draws nothing but slices of ham for the rest of the game, however.
No, I don't really see it either. You see Shard Volley here, which is actually in Andrea's hand. Can be kind of nice to sacrifice a land in response to Spreading Seas, but it's not really the card you want to be holding when your opponent is on 18.
Another Rift Bolt here for Mengucci. A bit of secure ways for Blohon. He's looking to end this game nice and quickly. 6-1-1's going to come into play. And Mengucci all of a sudden on the clock.
Very helpful there.
I think they're warriors actually, mate. Terrible.
Should we intervene or...
Well, imagine if Mengucci was playing any number of cowards. He'd think he could block these soldiers. But as it is here, Blohon sitting behind these 1-1s. Looks like things are going to get done and dusted nice and tidily here for the Czech player. Another Spreading Seas. Oh, and Mengucci.
With attack.
Give us it.
No.
Give us what we want. No, mate. Doesn't want to show off that shard volley by this way it looks. Mengucci takes 6. Blohon now, 5 untapped mana. 5 cards in hand. And here's a Rift Bolt. But it's another negate here for Blohon, who is just firing on all cylinders. He's not concerned at all. Mengucci making sure he's got those 2 negates. Oh, how lucky. How lucky can one man be?
Now, also making sure that he knows what he's up against if this goes into a game 3. Also making sure that he knows what Snapcaster can potentially flashback.
Slapping that mountain into play is Mengucci. And there's another Eidolon. Better late than never. There is the Bold Weir Intimidator, as Australians around the world rejoice. And now Celestial Colonnade coming in to give Mengucci a pasting. One of the 1-1's going to go down. Cowards can't block warriors, but Eidolons can block soldiers, it seems.
When Celestial Colonnade starts attacking in the blue-white control against burn matchup, it's not a good sign for
the writing's on the wall.
Player.
We can just whack OK Go on the stereo and listen to that song all day long, because that is the end of that. Andrea Mengucci going down in game number 2. And Simon, it came down to some of the cards that Blohon brought in from the board. He brought in the copies of Timely Reinforcements. He had the extra negates, and Mengucci was never really in that one.
Mengucci's draw was also a lot weaker. And something that I found interesting was that we saw only Spreading Seas from Blohon. So Andrea doesn't really know if he will have better targets for his Destructive Revelries. But I think you have to keep them in just because if Blohon has an enchantment-heavy draw, you need to be able to deal with them.
I mean, there aren't huge numbers of enchantments, in fairness, in Blohon's deck. I mean, this isn't like an all-star inclusion against something like it would be like Lantern, for example. But, you know, with 2 Detention Spheres, 2 Ruined Halos, we've got cards that are definitely pretty potent targets there for the Destructive Revelry. But it's not always going to be a great card.
Yeah. And in this matchup, actually, sometimes what you can do if you're playing against Burn is you can delay playing your enchantments until you have negate up, or you can delay exposing a creature to Searing Blaze in game 1 before you can protect it, maybe. And there are some really nice lines that Lukas can take here to at least, well, have the battle be fought when he wants to fight it.
And Mengucci's sideboard doesn't seem teched against these slower blue decks, to be honest. Like, there are some good options in the form of Skullcrack, as we mentioned, and other things like that. But he's got 2 copies of Core Firewalker, 2 copies of Rest in Peace, 2 Searing Blood, 2 Path to Exile, 2 Ensnaring Bridge, none of which do all that much work against white blue control.
No, he wants to have a little bit against everything, because his main deck is already a super finely tuned machine. You don't sideboard 6 cards in a burn deck, because all the best burn spells in Modern are already in your main deck. So what you want to do is you want to exchange those those extra Searing Blazes, and you want to bring in Skullcracks. We talked about Destructive Revelry already, but the core of the deck remains the same. You are basically the deck that's saying, if you are stumbling, I will win. If the game goes long and you don't have the right answers, I will win.
I will eventually top deck the cards I need.
Exactly, and it's always exciting to play Burn, because usually it does come down to these final draw steps.
I mean, people do enjoy sort of throwing a fair bit of shade at this deck, and certainly, you know, it's not a deck for everyone when it comes to play style or whatever, what have you, but the deck's very good, and it is a lot more decision focused than people give it credit for. It's an easy deck to play on the face of it. You chuck burn spells at your opponent's face until they're not there anymore.
Many games are quite simple.
Yes, exactly. You just show people pieces of cardboard with fire on them until they don't want to play with you anymore.
Exactly.
And that's the core of the gameplay. But there are so many small edges that can be gained with deploying these pieces of cardboard with pictures of fire on them. That there is a lot more going on under the surface than I think people realize. And you know, I'm not saying that everyone has to love this deck. You don't. You can hate it, and that's fine. But give it credit, because this deck does have a little bit more going for it than a lot of people immediately say, Simon.
Yep, and having a turn 1 Goblin Guide is certainly on the top of the list.
You've got to be lucky. I mean, this is the way forward. You've got to have the turn 1 Goblin Guide.
This is actually my biggest problem with the Burn deck, is the variance of your opening hands.
Oh yeah.
If you have, let's say, 1 or 2 1-drops in your opening hand, if you are on the play, your deck feels amazing. If you're on the draw and you're stuck there with only burn spells, it feels pretty miserable. Because it also reduces what you can actually decide about. You can just play your burn spells and that's it.
Because Goblin Guide as well, effectively, if you've got it in your opening hand, a lot of decks will just start at 16 against you. And then if they've got fetch lands and shock lands, they're going to have an even worse time. So this Goblin Guide really does, show you the way forward here. Just come with me over this rope bridge. Look how many maps I have. I cannot get lost, and it's perfectly safe. I have third-party liability, public liability insurance. Don't even worry about it. That's what he says. Blohon opens with a Flooded Strand, and Mengucci now with the second fiddle here. It's Taylor Swiftspear. And Lukas Blohon chose to fetch in response to the Goblin Guide trigger. What's going on there, Simon?
Yeah, this is actually a bit convoluted. What you want to do is you want to maximize your chances of drawing relevant cards. So, of course, if you get a land, that's a free land. But what happens if Goblin Guide reveals a spell and you're actually looking for spells, like that Cryptic Command? If you are then forced to shuffle because you want to cast Path to Exile or you just want to get a Hallowed Fountain out of your deck, you've actually basically fate sealed yourself. You've gotten rid of the card you wanted to draw.
So Goblin Guide is going to eat a Path to Exile, and Mengucci going to take the opportunity to save some time and get that Bloodstained Mire out of here as well, so he can go searching. Monastery Swiftspear is going to get in, however.
Might even be an instant here.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised here.
Lightning Bolt you.
For an extra 4 damage. Is that what we're going to see? Oh, well, no, okay. So a Suspended Riftbolt post-combat means that the Monastery Swiftspear just gets in for 1.
Suspend, of course, doesn't trigger Prowess.
No. Although it will next turn if that Swiftspear is still around. So we see the Swiftspear now as a 2-3. Blohon down to 13.
And now both of these 1-drops have done their duty. They have dealt damage. They have traded with Path to Exile. Okay, that's to be expected. But now the the spell mid-game, spell-dominated mid-game starts. Of course, if Mengucci draws an Eidolon, he's going to be happy to play it, but he has 13 life to deal with. That's a lot.
Another path off the top here. Blohon is going to be able to counter. No, he's not. He doesn't have double blue. He's going to have to activate that Field of Ruin to get there this turn. He does have Logic not in hand, but no way for him to cast it this turn by the look of things.
His hand is extremely powerful, but he's looking for some lands there.
So Mengucci. It's not often we see them burn players with about as many cards in hand as a control deck, but more lands. But thanks to the double path to exile, that is where we're standing right now.
And now Andrea can actually play somewhat of a slower game, saying, okay, you have negate mana up. I don't really want to expose my spells to your counter magic.
Chuck away a Rift Bolt here, see what Blohon wants to do about it, and yeah, just has to go for the healing salve mode on negate. And that leaves Mengucci much more likely to resolve something like, for example, a Boros Charm.
GP players.
No. So something that Blohon can do here is he can go for Field of Ruins, get the island, and cast the Serum Visions he just drew. So he gets a really good shot at having 4 mana next turn, maybe even triple blue for Cryptic Command.
And given that he has that Logic Knot and Cryptic Command in hand, he does need those islands, and he's going to find them here a nice way. I mean, the Field of Ruin pretty marginal against Mengucci here, but you got to do what you got to do once again.
Both players to the
Blohon,
and Mengucci is actually holding Destructive Revelry, the card we talked so much about during sideboarding. It is now a dead card, and also 2 damage when your opponent is at 13 is not a lot.
This game pretty evenly balanced right now. Blohon is the one with who is under the gun. He has to find a way to stabilize more convincingly here. Mengucci with 6 lands passes the turn. Does Blohon have that land?
He needs land number 4. That's what he's really looking for here.
And a Spreading Seas on the Sacred Foundry now is going to give Mengucci a Destructive Revelry target.
There's Celestial Colonnade. So Lukas will have Cryptic Command mana available next turn. Mengucci could fire off the Destructive Revelry, but he doesn't even have much to do with it.
Is that 3 more lands in Mengucci's hand, is it?
He's holding 2 lands, a Revelry and a Skullcrack.
Oh dear. Well, Blohon, that means on a virtual 8 after those burn spells have been deployed. And that also takes the teeth out of a card like Timely Reinforcements here for Blohon. Not going to be so much help for him.
That's the whole idea.
So Blohon, nice full grip for him. But how is he wanting to deploy it?
And Mengucci's hand is full as well, so Blohon has to be always concerned that if he taps out, he's just going to lose on the spot. He doesn't know that Mengucci's hand is relatively weak, and Mengucci is doing a good job of representing strength, even though he doesn't have much.
Blohon now is going to take the opportunity to deploy a Planeswalker. You're nodding in approval, Simon.
Yes, because it doesn't feel great to just make a play where you know, okay, if my opponent has a really good hand, I'm losing the game, but you have to put some pressure on your opponent anyway, and if you can't beat the perfect hand, then at least you have to try to beat the mediocre or weak hands, and by tapping out this turn, you're now giving yourself the opportunity to have that Logic Knot, to have that Cryptic Command backup from the get-go.
Now Blohon is getting very, very aggressive here with this Gideon. He's looking to end the game in basically 2 turns. Mengucci on 14, and that is enough. Wow, what a lightning fast recovery there from Blohon, who managed to deploy a threat and just rode it all the way to victory. Mengucci with 5 cards in hand just couldn't do anything.
Terrible draw by Mengucci. He had his opponent on 13, and he didn't even have more burn in hand.
Quite an unbelievable thing. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Simon, but surely more avenues are actually available there for Mengucci with the Destructive Revelry, with the Skullcrack. That would have removed the Gideon at least with the damage redirected. But
I think he wasn't exactly dead, but he would have had to spend a lot of... He didn't even have a way to deal with the Night Token to survive for 1 more turn, but in the end, he knew that he was... Like how many cards? 3 or 4 top decks away from winning anyway. So what do you gain from killing Gideon? You're just basically also scooping the match.
Just kind of treading water by just chucking cards away to Planeswalker. Well, quite an interesting and a dramatic end to a game that I think was actually for most of it. I mean, neither player was particularly favoured. We said that Blohon had to be the one to find a way to put himself back in the game meaningfully enough. But ultimately, I think that the way that the game broke on and that very aggressive play for Blohon, how risky was that line that he took?
Well, I think he had a pretty good read that Mengucci didn't have that super powerful hand that I was talking about. Because if you looked at Mengucci's play throughout the match, he basically cast his spells whenever he had the chance.
Okay.
So he wasn't trying to overload Blohon's mana in a single turn. He was really just saying, if you have negate, cast it, and so on and so on. So I think Lukas's play was spot on there.
All right, well, we're going to be able to check in with the man himself, Lukas Blohon, standing by in the feature match area right now in the wake of his round 5 victory. Lukas, welcome along to the Pro Show. It's great to have you, and congratulations. A pretty interesting win there in game number 3.
Hey, thanks.
We were talking just now about your very aggressive, very aggressive way you played out that last match there, deploying Gideon, attacking very early and looking to end the game very quickly. Did you realise that Andrea Mengucci's hand was pretty weak there?
Yeah, the thing is, you pretty much have to play your things when you can, because they can overload you on mana anytime they want, because they have cheaper spells and you have like cryptic commands and 4 mana spells. So whenever you have a chance to cast negate or something, you have to do it. And there were like 1 or 2 turns where I tapped out and he didn't play anything in his turn. So it was pretty obvious that he doesn't have much in his hand, like 1 or 2 burn spells maybe. So I just wanted to kill him as fast as possible. It was possible that he might have some Searing Blazes that would make the Gideon worse, but my hand was so slow that if I didn't play the Gideon, I would just pass and do nothing. And even if he had burn spells, he would just not play them into my cryptic commands. So he would just wait when I tap out, and I would have to tap out eventually, and then he would play all those burn spells. So I think it was right to play the Gideon there.
So Lukas, we saw you lose game 1. It looked a little bit close at the end, but ultimately you were on 3 or 2 lives, so Mengucci was able to top deck the burn spell. How much better do you think the matchup gets after sideboarding?
Well, it's way better. Game 1 is pretty bad. My draw game 1 was very good, and I was on a play, so it looked very close, and I would be able to win the game if he bricked for 2 turns. But game 1 is miserable. After board, it's way better because you have timely reinforcements, you have dispels, you have a lot more interaction, and you have game 1 you don't really have a clock on them, so they can just burn you at some point. But game 2, when you get the timely and the life gain, it's so much easier to turn the game around.
Final question for you here, Lukas. Obviously, we've checked in with the metagame that overall the tournament, sort of the field that we're expecting here at GP Lyon, and quite a number of some of the best players in the world, yourself included, on white-blue control. What led you to make this deck choice for this tournament?
Well, I wasn't sure what to play at the GP, so I looked at the deck list from the Pro Tour, and there are a lot of blue-white decks doing well. So I tried one with Ancestral Visions, and I fell in love with that card in the deck. So I started playing with it, and I was winning a lot in Magic Online, so it was a pretty easy decision for me.
All right, well, interesting to see that you and many of the other best players in the world have chosen that deck. We'll see how things go for the rest of the weekend. Lukas Blohon, very best of luck to you. Thanks for joining us on the Pro Show.
Bye.
Lukas Blohon there down in the feature match area. Great to have his company as we explore, well, I mean, what is one of the most open and diverse formats that we've seen in recent memory, Simon. And I mean, there continue to be no real consensus on what the best deck is.
No, absolutely. You can play anything you want, really. You have all these aggressive decks. You have the mid-range decks. I think Death Shadow, you have to play it if you want to be mid-range. That's just my opinion. And now we have control decks and the big mana decks. So I think for the first time, actually, control is rising in Modern, which is really exciting to see.
Something for everyone in the format as it stands right now, but also as it stands right now, we've got to go to a break. We've got to get some stuff ready for after the other side of these ads, so stick with us, my friends. We'll have Time Walk Magic coming your way as we continue coverage of round number 5 at GP Lyon. Simon Gertz and Riley Knight, we'll see you back here on the tournament floor in just a few moments.